Welcome back to A Considered Life. Today, as promised, we're going to do a very short video on what is mind and what is the nature of consciousness. Now, if you like this video, then like this video. Give it a thumbs up. If you like the channel content, subscribe to the channel. And in the meantime, given today's topic, work on your powers of telekinesis. Now, the reason today's video can be so short is because I'm not going to argue for the nature of mind as immaterial. There is what John Haldane calls a presumption of physicalism, or a prejudice toward physicalism in the philosophy of mind. We're not going to cover any of that. What I am going to do is just show you some resources that you can look at yourself if you want to read about the debates over the philosophy of mind, all 2 or 3 of you out there. This video is just a short follow-up to the video that I just did, which was, why are some people saved and others not? In that video, I looked at what the nature of man is in terms of a soul-body composition, and then the powers of the soul are intellect, will, and emotion. And so following from that, with all of the pieces and parts that we have in place from my video on Philosophy 101, and then the video on why are some saved and others not, what we can do here is just simply demystify the notion of mind given the pieces of what we call philosophical anthropology that are already in place. So again, I'm not going to argue for the immateriality of the mind or anything like that. All I'm going to show today is that given the pieces that we've put in place, the nature of mind is a pretty straightforward extension of those. Here are a few resources that have informed my philosophy of mind, and if I have questions about the philosophy of mind, I revisit these guys and their arguments. So the first is a compilation, Mind, Metaphysics, and Value, edited by John Haldane. Actually, John Haldane contributes the chapter on philosophy of mind in this text. Then Mind, Matter, and Nature, an Introduction to Thomistic Philosophy of Mind by James Madden.
So now he throws the flag on me because I told the truth.
Another sort of overview on the philosophy of mind by Edward Fazer. And then if you want to do a deep dive on sort of this reflective consciousness, Teresa Corey has this book on Aquinas and human self-knowledge. Now, for our purposes today, I'm going to read a quote from Frederick Wilhelmsen's Man's Knowledge Reality Introduction to Thomistic Epistemology, because in here, Wilhelmsen discusses the difference between material reflection and what he calls spiritual reflection. And given the last video's content, what he calls the spiritual intellect, we're just thinking of in terms of the naturally immaterial aspects of the soul. So Wilhelmsen says, "It is of the essence of matter that it possesses quantified parts occupying space. Each of these parts is outside every other part. Each part filling such and such a place in space excludes every other part. The non-presence of the whole to itself is a natural condition of material existence. A material thing cannot reflect completely upon itself. In a certain sense, the part can reflect upon the part, but never the whole upon the whole. For example, a flat piece of paper can be folded in half so that one half of the paper has been bent back or reflected upon the other half. One half is physically present to the other half. No matter how often it is folded, only part of the paper will be present to the rest of the paper. The whole will never be present to the whole. Matter simply cannot effect a complete conversion upon itself. But what matter cannot do, spirit can. By nature, the spiritual is that which excludes those conditions intrinsic to material existence. Spirit is not composed of quantified parts deployed through space. It follows, therefore, that it is possible for spirit to reflect completely upon itself, to return to its own essence, or, so to speak, metaphorically, to be all that it is in the center of its being. So what Wilhelmsen is saying is that material things, because they have parts and they're extended in space, and he uses the piece of paper example, the most that a physical thing can reflect back to itself is one half. So you have a whole piece of paper, and one half of it can touch the other half of it. but as it were, the whole of the paper can't be present to the rest of the whole physically. It can't. The most it can be present to itself materially is half. But he says the spirit is not confined that way. The spirit is able to completely reflect back on itself. And so that brings us to this notion of consciousness. So we started out with saying that in the Philosophy 101 video, we talked about all corporeal or material substances are composed of form and matter. In the case of man or humans, our rational soul is the form of the human body. The soul has these powers, intellect, will, and emotion. And so for example, Summa Theologia, question 75, Aquinas will say, well, what is the mind? It's that part of the soul that understands, or that aspect of the soul, or that power of the soul that understands. And then given what Wilhelmsen just said, because the intellect is what we were calling earlier a naturally immaterial part of man, the intellect is able to reflect completely back on itself. And this kind of self-awareness is what we call consciousness. Now, in the video on why I'm not a Calvinist, I said that, for example, with R.C. Sproul and his theology, he found it mysterious that Satan would fall or that Adam and Eve would fall, given the condition of Jonathan Edwards' view of free choice. And what I said there was that Satan's fall and Adam's fall, they're not mysterious intrinsically. They're not mysterious in and of themselves. What they are is they're inexplicable given the condition of Jonathan Edwards' view of free choice. If we remove that condition and replace it with another view of free choice, Satan's fall and Adam's fall become explainable. And that's what's going on here, I think. If you see the mind as equal to the brain, right? If we take the mind and its powers and turn it into, or make it identical to that physical organ that we call the brain, and we try and reduce mental activity to the neurochemical activity of the brain, then yes, the notion of mind and the experience of consciousness become mysterious and inexplicable. But I think it's only mysterious and inexplicable on a physicalist understanding of the human, right? This sort of unquestioned commitment to a materialistic view of what humans are. But if you take an Aristotelian Thomistic view, where humans are a form-matter composite, the form is a naturally immaterial one. It has these immaterial powers, intellect and will. And given the nature of an immaterial power's ability to reflect back through itself completely, we get the phenomenon or the experience of consciousness. Now, what happened in the history of philosophy is there was a decided break in the history of philosophy on this question, especially with René Descartes, because René Descartes, what he does in this assessment is, if it is true that what the intellect is, what the mind is one facet of, or one power of, an immaterial soul, then what Descartes does is he takes the immaterial soul, reduces it to one of its powers, right, mind, and then turns mind into an independent substance, a substance independent of the body. And now we have the mind-body problem, and then we have specifically the interaction problem of substance dualism in the philosophy of mind. But one third way is the hylomorphism of Aristotelian Thomism, and it doesn't get that much credit. Okay, so that's a short video on what is mind, what is the nature of consciousness. Now, the next series of videos will be ones where I take a bit of a political turn. One of my nieces her birthday's coming up, and in honor of UK, I'm doing a series of some of these essays that I've sent you over the years that are a little bit more political in nature. So in the next video, I'm going to talk about what I call ideological eugenics and why the woke left are the new Nazis. So we'll talk about that next time.